Thank you for joining me. The following transitions show you the process I use for going from a sketch to a finished painting. Once I've done a sketch, I'll scan it into my computer, and then I can resize it to the size I want for my photo frame. I'm using Arches watercolour paper. It's a knot surface and it's 300 grams. A very nice paper. I'm making sure I've got the paper in position with my sketch. I've got an A3 light box which I use for transferring all of my sketches. I'm taping my sketch into position, turn the paper over. Now that's the front side, you can see it's the Arches watercolour paper. I'm just going to draw in the outlines. Very simple, don't want too much detail. Now we've got I've transferred it to the watercolour paper, and I've soaked it in the bath for over 10 minutes, and I'm now stapling it to my board, and once that's dry it'll be as tight as a drum and ready to paint on. I'm using masking fluid it's where the dog is splashing through the water. I want some water droplets. The first job is to wet the part of the painting you're going to apply the paint. And I'm using burnt sienna, burnt umber, and mixed with a little bit of ultramarine for the shaded parts. Pre-wet the paper first so that the paint diffuses into the surface. Just want soft edges to start with. The light's coming from the left hand side, and we have to exaggerate this on the painting. So for the moment it's just the three paints I'm using, mixed in varying quantities. For the darkness of the ears, that was burnt umber and ultramarine blue. I'm looking at my photograph all the time while I'm copying the paints to the paper. I have speeded up the actual painting process because it would take too long on the video. This is my daughter's boxer dog. Her name is Sophie, and the photograph was a very lucky shot by my son-in-law Dan. It must be one of my favourite photographs because it's full of action, chasing through the waves. Getting those dark patches around the eyes. Now Sophie loves chasing all the seabirds along the seashore. I love all the floppy lips. It's a joy to paint. I'm using burnt umber here with mixed with ultramarine blue. Just keeping it going wash by wash and keep those soft tones going for the moment. As she's running through the water, her fur is quite wet. I'm just going to run down the edge of the leg with a damp brush, just to soften it off. Here I'm putting in some stronger tones just to represent the damp fur. On the palette you can see I've got burnt sienna at the top and then burnt umber and ultramarine mixed on the bottom section. Again I'm going to rinse my brush in water, dab it on a tissue to make it fairly moist and soften off the edges. And while it's still damp, I'll add a little bit of burnt sienna into the left hand side. She's unfortunately had they don't do it in England, but Sophie was born in New Zealand. And they dock the tail, and I'm not keen on that. I like to see a dog with the full tail, but she's a beautiful dog. She's now in Australia, and where my daughter lives, she likes chasing kangaroos now. And I keep building up the tones and the hues from what I can see in the photograph. The face was quite a bit of a challenge because on the photograph it's not very clear. Yet again, I'm softening off those edges. And starting to put the sea in. Ultramarine blue. This was on a beach in New Zealand. So we've made a mistake and gone right over the edge. It doesn't matter because it's going to be set in a mount. Very loosely done. As I'm coming down the paper, I'm making it stronger. I just want to get the feeling of the movement of the sea. And of course the stronger tones will be at the bottom of the paper. I've let that dry, and then we're going in. That was a little bit of cerulean blue, very, very light. And then now we're using some cobalt blue. I'm making it fainter and fainter as it goes off into the distance. There were two bits of the sea where there was two lots of rollers coming in. Again, that's cerulean blue. To represent the rollers. And cobalt blue just to send it into the distance. Now this is just burnt sienna, and that's just a reflection of the dog, very loose. I'm just painting the collar here with alizarin crimson, darkening it off on the right hand side by adding some ultramarine blue. I'm removing the masking fluid and you can now see the splashes in the water. Just put a few accents into the splashes. I just wanted to go over some of the finishing touches to the painting. For the eyes, I've used burnt umber, and the pupil is burnt umber and ultramarine blue. There's some glints in the eyes, there's highlights on the nose and the nostrils, white under the chin and a white patch on the neck, and they're all done with white gouache. For the ripples in the sea, very faint mixture of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, stronger in the foreground but progressively getting smaller and fainter as it goes into the distance. Wanted to create some movement of the water, and for that I've used Winsor green with some O'Reilly. It's very, very faint, but it gives a nice feeling of movement to the water. And finally there's the ring, which is made from burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. I hope you like the painting, and I hope you've learned something. I've certainly learned something. I don't possess to be an artist, I'm just following my hobby, that's all. The more I do, hopefully the better I'll become. Thanks for watching.